The day Earth changed forever began like any other. People went to work, children played in parks, and politicians argued on television. No one knew that alien ships were about to appear in the sky. They came without warning. 7 massive vessels positioned themselves around Earth. Panic spread quickly. Military forces worldwide went on high alert. But the aliens made no aggressive moves. Instead, they sent a message to every device on the planet. We come in peace. We are the Galactic Council. We wish to speak with your leaders. 3 days later, Ambassador John Miller stood in the United Nations building in New York. He had been chosen to represent all of humanity. A former diplomat with 30 years of experience, John still felt unprepared for this moment. The aliens entered the room. They looked nothing like humans had imagined. The tallest was Zixtal, an Arcturian with blue skin and 4 arms. The smallest was Niebler, a round Proximan with large eyes that changed color with its mood. Greetings, humans. Zixtal spoke in perfect English. We are representatives of the Galactic Council, a union of 27 advanced species who maintain peace across known space. John stepped forward. On behalf of Earth, I welcome you. The meeting lasted for hours. The aliens explained that they had been watching Earth for decades. They had seen humanity's rapid technological progress. They were impressed by how quickly humans had gone from simple flight to space exploration. Your species has great potential, Niebler said, its eyes turning a bright yellow. But we also have concerns. The aliens showed videos of Earth's wars, conflicts, and violence. Your history is filled with fighting, Zixtal noted. Even now, your nations threaten each other with weapons that could destroy your planet. John couldn't argue with that. We are not perfect, he admitted, but we are learning to be better. The Council offered Earth a deal, probationary membership in the Galactic Council. Humans would gain limited rights to travel between stars. They would learn from other species and share in galactic knowledge, but full membership would depend on humans proving they could be peaceful. We need to know that you won't bring your violent tendencies into space, Niebler explained. The next week, world leaders met to discuss the offer. Some were excited about the opportunities. Others worried about alien influence. In the end, they agreed to accept. 6 months later, John stood on the Council's massive space station orbiting Jupiter. It had been built in just days using alien technology. He watched as human and alien engineers worked together, installing Earth's flag alongside 27 others. Ambassador Miller, Zixtal approached him. The Council has decided that Earth will have its first test. What kind of test? John asked. There is a dispute between 2 species in a nearby system. The Valerians and Techie have been arguing over mining rights for years. We believe humans might offer a fresh perspective. John felt both proud and nervous. We won't let you down. I hope not, Zixtal replied. But remember, we will be watching closely. How you handle this situation will affect your future in the Council. As John looked out at the stars, he realized the true challenge ahead. Humans would need to prove they belonged among these advanced beings. They would need to show that Earth's warlike past was behind them. What he didn't know was that the Council had placed secret observers throughout human space agencies. They were studying human behavior, looking for signs of aggression or cooperation. Do you think they'll succeed? Niebler asked Zixtal when they were alone. I'm not sure, the Arcturian replied. Humans are unpredictable. That makes them both interesting and dangerous. As John returned to Earth to deliver the news, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. The future of humanity among the stars would depend on their ability to keep peace, not just with aliens, but with each other. 5 years passed since Earth's first contact with the Galactic Council. Humans had worked hard to prove themselves. They had built new ships using alien technology. They had learned alien languages. They had established trade with 12 different species. The Earth Space Diplomatic Corps was created to handle relations with alien worlds. Only the best and brightest were chosen to join. They trained in alien customs, interstellar law, and conflict resolution. Captain Susan Richards stood on the bridge of the USS Concord, Earth's newest diplomatic vessel. At 42, She had gray streaks in her brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. Before the aliens came, she had been a Navy officer and peace negotiator in war zones. "Captain, we're ready to leave orbit," said Alan Douglas, her communications officer. Alan was younger with a talent for languages. He could already speak 4 alien tongues. "Thank you, Alan." "Set course for the vortex system," Susan replied. She looked around at her crew. Diane Lewis, her security chief, was checking weapons systems. Though this was a peace mission, the Concord was well armed. Diane had served in the Marines and had a scar across her cheek from a battle years ago. Sam Johnson, the science officer, studied data on his screen. With thick glasses and quick fingers, he had 3 science degrees and a deep curiosity about alien biology. "Is everyone clear on our mission?" Susan asked. They all nodded. Their job was to help end a dispute between the Valerians and Techie over the planet Vortex 4. The conflict had gone on for decades. If it turned into war, it could destabilize an entire sector of space. "The Council is counting on us," Susan reminded them. "This is the biggest test humans have faced." What Susan didn't know was that they were being watched. In a small room near the engine section, Zixtal sat monitoring everything. The Arcturian had disguised himself as equipment and could observe without being seen. The Council wanted to know how humans behaved when they thought no one was looking. The Concord traveled through space for 3 weeks. During that time, the crew studied everything about the Valerians and Techie. The Valerians were tall, thin beings who lived in forests and breathed nitrogen. The Techie were short, strong creatures who preferred mountains and breathed oxygen. Both species claim Vortex therefore belongs to them, Sam explained during a briefing. The Valerians say they found it first. The Techie say they developed it more. And the planet has rare minerals both want, added Diane. Susan nodded. Our job is to find a solution they can both accept. As they approached Vortex 4, Alan received a message. His face showed surprise. "Captain, there's another human ship already in orbit around Vortex 4, he said. "That's impossible," Susan replied. "We're the only diplomatic mission sent here." But Alan was right. On their screens appeared another ship, the USS Resolute. It was smaller than the Concord, but newer with more advanced weapons. "Open a channel," Susan ordered. A man's face appeared on screen. He had a neatly trimmed beard and a confident smile. Susan's heart sank. She knew him well. "Captain Gregory Williams," she said coldly. "What are you doing here?" "The same as you, I imagine," Gregory replied. "Bringing peace to this system." Susan gripped her chair tightly. Gregory had been her rival since academy days. They had different views on everything, especially how to handle diplomacy. He believed in showing strength. She believed in understanding. "This is our mission," Susan told him. "Assigned by Ambassador Miller himself. And mine was approved by the Defense Department," Gregory answered. "Looks like Earth sent 2 teams. May the best diplomat win." The screen went dark. Susan looked at her worried crew. "This complicates things," she said. In his hidden room, Zixtal observed everything. He sent a message to the Council. "Humans are competing with each other. This may become interesting." The USS Concord entered orbit around Vortex 4. The planet below was beautiful, with purple oceans and green land masses. Both the Valerians and Techie wanted it badly. "Prepare the shuttle," Susan ordered. "We'll meet with the Valerian leaders first." As her team got ready, Susan thought about Gregory Williams. They had once been friends at the academy. Then came the training exercise that went wrong. Both had been married then. Both lost their spouses in the aftermath of that disaster. They blamed each other, and their friendship turned to bitter rivalry. The shuttle landed in a clearing surrounded by tall trees. The air smelled sweet. The Valerians waited there, their thin bodies swaying like branches in the wind. Their skin was pale green, and they had no mouths. They spoke by changing colors on their skin. "We welcome humans to our world." The leader flashed in patterns that Alan translated. "Thank you," Susan replied. "We are here to help find peace between your people and the Techie." At that moment, another shuttle landed nearby. Gregory stepped out with his team. His science officer was a woman named Olivia Green. His security chief was Kyle Peters, a big man with a permanent frown. "We already have a meeting with them," Susan said quietly to Gregory. "The Valerians invited both teams," Gregory replied with a smile. "Seems they don't trust your approach." The Valerian leader's skin flickered rapidly. Alan leaned closer to Susan. "They're confused about why there are two human groups," he whispered. Susan tried to explain. "We have different departments on Earth. Sometimes we work separately." "But you are the same species?" the Valerian asked through color patterns. "Yes," Susan answered. "Yet you do not coordinate?" The Valerian's colors showed confusion. Before Susan could answer, Gregory stepped forward. "The Valerians need to understand that the Techie are dangerous," he said loudly. "You need strength, not just talk." "That's not helping," Susan hissed at him. The meeting went badly. Every time Susan suggested compromise, Gregory pushed for the Valerians to stand firm. The aliens became more confused. The next day, Susan's team visited the Techie. They lived in stone cities carved into mountains. The Techie were short but strong, with rocky skin and 6 eyes that blinked in sequence. "Why do humans speak with different voices?" the Techie leader asked. He had met with Gregory's team earlier. "We have different perspectives," Sam explained, carefully. "The other humans said we should prepare for war," the Techie leader rumbled. "You say we should talk peace. Which is the human way?" Susan felt frustrated. "Both approaches have value, but..." She stopped as she saw something moving in the shadows. It was Zixtal from the council watching them. He quickly disappeared. That night, back on the Concord, Susan called a meeting. "We have a problem," she told her crew. "Gregory is undermining everything we try to do. And I saw a council observer today. They're monitoring us." "Why would they do that?" Diane asked. "To see if humans can handle diplomatic missions," Susan replied. "And right now, we're failing." Just then, Alan received an urgent message. "Captain, the Valerians have attacked a Techie outpost. 3 killed, many injured." "That's impossible," Susan said. "The Valerians were ready to talk yesterday." According to this, Alan continued reading. "They were advised that a show of force would bring the Techie to the table faster." Everyone looked at each other. They knew who had given that advice. "Contact the Resolute," Susan ordered. "I need to speak with Gregory now." But the Resolute didn't answer their hails. The situation was getting worse by the minute. In his hidden chamber, Zixtal sent another message to the council. "Humans are working against each other. The conflict is escalating. This test may have been a mistake." Susan finally reached Gregory on a secure channel. His face showed no regret. "Did you tell the Valerians to attack?" she demanded. "I suggested they show strength," Gregory replied. "The Techie only respect power. 3 Techie are dead because of your advice." Gregory shrugged. "Sometimes peace requires a demonstration of will." Susan could not believe what she was hearing. "This is exactly why humans weren't trusted in space. You've just proven their fears right." After the call ended, Susan gathered her team. They needed to fix this mess quickly. "We need to meet with both species together," she said. "Show them we're united despite our differences." "The Techie are demanding revenge," Alan reported from his communications station. "Their battleships are moving toward Valerian territory." "And the Resolute?" Susan asked. "They're positioning themselves near the Valerian fleet," Diane answered. "Looks like they're taking sides." Susan made a difficult decision. "We'll land on Vortex 4 at the neutral zone, send invitations to both species for emergency talks, and inform the Resolute they're welcome to join us." The neutral zone was a strip of land belonging to neither side. The Concord landed in a large field. Soon after, representatives from both species arrived. The Valerians came in floating pods to protect them from the oxygen-rich air. The Techie marched in wearing ceremonial armor. Susan's team had set up a large tent with separate atmosphere controls for each species. Just as the meeting was about to begin, the Resolute's shuttle landed nearby. Gregory entered with his team. "You don't mind if we join, do you?" he asked with a smile. Of course not, Susan said through gritted teeth. We're all working for peace. The aliens took their positions on opposite sides of the tent. Susan stood between them. We apologize for the confusion caused by having two human teams, she began. Today we will speak with one voice. Gregory stepped forward. Indeed. And that voice says the techie must acknowledge Valerian historical claims to this world. Susan stared at him in shock. That's not what we agreed on. It's the right approach, Gregory insisted. The techie leader's 6 eyes blinked rapidly. Your kinds fight each other during peace talks? We're not fighting, Susan said quickly. We're discussing. But the damage was done. Both alien groups watched with growing interest as the humans argued. Outside the tent, the human security teams gathered. Diane and Kyle, Gregory's security chief, were old rivals from military training. Your captain is making things worse, Diane said. Your captain is too soft, Kyle replied. Sometimes you need to pick a side. Their argument grew heated. Other crew members joined in, taking sides. Meanwhile, inside the tent, the aliens had stopped paying attention to their own dispute. They were completely focused on the humans. Fascinating. The Valerian leader's skin flashed. They fight their own kind during peace missions to other worlds. Perhaps this is why they advance so quickly, the techie leader rumbled. Always competing. Susan noticed the aliens talking to each other. For the first time, the Valerians and techie were actually communicating directly. But before she could build on this unexpected development, Gregory made another statement. The conquered team lacks experience with the techie. Our analysis shows they cannot be trusted to honor agreements. Susan had enough. The Resolute team is ignoring key cultural factors. Their approach will lead to war, not peace. As the human argument escalated, something strange happened. The Valerian and techie leaders moved closer together, both watching, the humans with growing interest. Is this normal behavior for your species? The techie leader asked. No, Susan said, embarrassed. This is unprofessional. On the contrary, the Valerian flashed. It is most educational. In the shadows, Zixtal watched everything. This was not what the Council had expected when they sent humans on a peace mission. But the aliens' reaction was surprising. They seemed more fascinated than offended by the human conflict. The peace conference continued for 3 more days. Each morning, the humans, Valerians, and techie would gather in the tent. Each day, the situation got worse. Susan tried to stay professional. She prepared careful presentations about sharing the planet's resources. She suggested dividing Vortex 4 into zones where each species could live according to their needs. The forests for the Valerians, the mountains for the techie, she explained, with neutral areas for trade. It was a good plan. Both alien groups seemed interested. Then Gregory would speak. But the real question is who controls the mineral deposits, he would say. And clearly, the Valerians have the stronger claim. Susan couldn't understand why Gregory favored the Valerians. On the 3rd day, during a break, she confronted him outside the tent. What are you doing? She asked. Why are you taking their side? Gregory looked around to make sure no one could hear them. The Valerians have offered Earth-exclusive mining rights if they win this dispute, he whispered. The Defense Department wants those minerals. Susan was shocked. That's why you're here? For mining rights? This mission is about proving humans can be trusted. It's about getting results, Gregory replied. Your way might feel good, but mine will actually benefit Earth. Susan walked away angry. That night, she stayed up late reviewing Valerian history. She discovered something interesting. The Valerians had made similar promises to 3 other species in previous disputes. They never kept those promises. On the 4th day, Susan arrived at the conference with new determination. When Gregory once again praised the Valerians' claim to the planet, she stood up. Before we continue, she said, I'd like to share some information about previous Valerian agreements. She showed records of the broken promises. The techie seemed pleased. The Valerian's skin flashed with angry colors. Gregory looked furious. Captain Richards is trying to sabotage a beneficial arrangement, he announced. What she hasn't told you is that she has a personal grudge against me." "That's not relevant," Susan said. "Isn't it?" Gregory's voice got louder. "Your judgment has been clouded since the Academy incident." "Don't bring that up here," Susan warned. But Gregory continued. "Captain Richards blames me for a training accident that ended both our marriages. She's letting personal feelings interfere with diplomacy." The aliens watched with growing interest. Susan felt her face getting hot with anger. "You were responsible?" she said. "You ignored safety protocols. People got hurt. I made a call. You weren't willing to take risks? People died." Susan didn't realize she had crossed the room. She was standing right in front of Gregory now. The aliens moved closer, watching carefully. "This is most unusual diplomatic behavior," the Valerian leader flashed. "Is this some human negotiation ritual?" asked the techie leader. Neither human captain heard them. Years of anger had finally boiled over. "You always thought you were better than everyone," Susan said. "Your arrogance cost lives then, and it will cost lives now. And you always hid behind rules instead of doing what needed to be done," Gregory shot back. No one saw who pushed first. Suddenly, Susan and Gregory were grappling with each other. They knocked over a table of diplomatic documents. The aliens backed away in alarm. The human security teams rushed into the tent. Instead of separating their captains, Diane and Kyle joined the fight, old rivalries flaring up. Within minutes, the tent was in chaos. Humans fought humans while the Valerians and Techie fled outside. Watching from nearby, Zixtal stepped out of hiding. He activated his emergency communicator. "Council headquarters, this is Zixtal. The human diplomatic mission has failed. They are physically fighting each other during peace negotiations. Request immediate intervention." Outside the tent, the Valerian and Techie leaders stood side by side, watching the humans battle. "Have you ever seen anything like this?" the Techie asked. "Never," flashed the Valerian. "These humans are the strangest species in the galaxy." Susan sat in a small waiting room on Proxima Station, the headquarters of the Galactic Council. Her uniform was torn. A bruise darkened her left cheek. She avoided looking at Gregory, who sat across from her with a split lip and a black eye. 3 days had passed since their fight on Vortex 4. Council ships had arrived quickly, separating the humans and sending them here for judgment. Both captains knew this was serious. The future of humanity in space might depend on what happened today. The door opened. A tall Arcturian entered, not Zixtal, but another council member with darker blue skin. "The council will see you now," the alien said. Susan and Gregory followed the Arcturian down a long hallway. Neither spoke. They entered a large circular room with seats rising up like in a theater. 27 different alien species looked down at them from these seats. In the center was a small platform where the humans were directed to stand. "Captains Susan Richards and Gregory Williams of Earth," announced a voice. "You are brought before the full council to explain your actions." Niebler, the round Proximan who had first met with Ambassador Miller, floated down to their level. Its eyes shifted between red and purple, showing its mixed emotions. "We trusted humans with a simple peace mission," Niebler said. "Instead, you fought each other in front of the very species you were supposed to help." Susan looked at the floor, ashamed. Gregory stared straight ahead. "Zixtal will present the evidence," Niebler continued. On large screens around the room, videos began to play. They showed everything: the arguments between the crews, the contradicting advice given to the aliens, and finally, the physical fight in the tent. It was worse than Susan remembered. "In my 300 years as an observer," Zixtal told the council, "I have never seen diplomats attack their own kind during peace talks." The council members murmured among themselves. Many shook. Their heads or made gestures of disbelief. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Niebler asked the humans. Susan stepped forward. "We failed. I failed. Our personal history got in the way of our mission. That's not an excuse, just the truth." Gregory spoke next. "Earth sent 2 teams with different goals. That was the first mistake. The second was choosing us, knowing our past." The door at the back of the chamber opened. Ambassador John Miller hurried in, looking tired from a long journey. "Honorable Council," he said, bowing to the aliens. "I've come as soon as I heard." "Ambassador Miller," Niebler acknowledged. "Your humans have created a serious incident." "I understand," John said, "but I ask to speak before judgment is passed." Niebler consulted with other council members, then nodded. "You may address the council." John stepped onto the platform beside the captains. "What these humans did was wrong," he began. "They let personal feelings interfere with their duty. But I must explain something about humans that may help you." "Understand?" The council listened carefully as John continued. "Humans argue. We compete. We disagree, sometimes strongly. It's part of how we solve problems. Different views clash, and from that clash, new ideas emerge. It's messy, but it works for us." "But physical fighting during peace missions?" asked a tall, thin alien with feathers. "How can that possibly help?" "It doesn't," John admitted. "That was taking our natural tendencies too far. These captains know that now." An older techie member spoke next. "Perhaps humans are simply too aggressive for diplomatic work. We feared this from the beginning." Many council members nodded in agreement. Susan felt a chill. This could be the end of humanity's place in the council. "We must consider an unprecedented measure," said a crystalline being from the highest tier. "Humans may be too dangerous to allow on peace missions. They fight even their own kind." The council began formal deliberations. Susan, Gregory, and John were asked to wait outside. "What will they decide?" Susan asked quietly. "I don't know," John replied. "But it doesn't look good for us." Susan, Gregory, and Ambassador John waited for 3 hours outside the council chamber. They sat in uncomfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Susan worried about her crew and what this meant for Earth's future. Gregory seemed to be rehearsing defenses in his mind, his lips moving slightly. Finally, the doors opened. The Arcturian gestured for them to return. "The council has reached a decision," Niebler announced when they stood once again on the central platform. "But first, we have received an urgent transmission from Vortex 4. We believe you should see it." A large screen lit up. On it appeared the Valerian leader and the Techie leader standing side by side. This was unusual. The two species rarely came close to each other due to their different breathing needs. "Greetings, Council," the Techie leader rumbled. "We wish to report an unexpected development." The Valerian's skin flashed patterns that translated as, "After the humans were removed from our world, something surprising happened. We started talking to each other. We have reached a peace agreement." The Techie continued. "We will share. Vortex R4. The forests for the Valerians, the mountains for us. The mineral deposits will be mined together, with profits split equally." Susan looked at Gregory in shock. It was exactly the solution she had proposed. "What caused this change?" Niebler asked the aliens. The Valerian skin pulsed with amused colors. "The humans showed us something important. We watched them fight their own kind during peace talks. If even peacekeepers fight each other, what hope would we have in a war? Yet made our conflict seem foolish," added the Techie. "We decided we did not want to look as ridiculous as the humans did." Susan didn't know whether to feel insulted or relieved. The council members whispered among themselves, clearly surprised. "This is unexpected," Zixtel admitted. "But it doesn't change what happened," said the crystalline being. "The humans still violated diplomatic protocols." John stepped forward. "With respect, it seems their actions, however unintentional, led to peace." "Through failure," Niebler pointed out. "Sometimes failure teaches better than success," John replied. "These captains have learned a hard lesson." The council discussed among themselves again. Finally, Niebler floated forward. "We have modified our decision," the Proximan announced. "Humans will not be banned from diplomatic functions entirely. However, we cannot ignore what happened." A tall insect-like being stood. "The council has created a new protocol, the Human Diplomatic Containment Protocol." On screens around the room, the rules appeared. No more than one human vessel may participate in any diplomatic mission. Human diplomats must be screened for personal conflicts. All human diplomatic teams must include at least one council observer. Humans are prohibited from engaging in competitive activities during peace missions. We will call this the "don't let humans fight each other" rule, Niebler added, its eyes now a lighter shade of purple. Susan felt relief wash over her. It wasn't ideal, but it could have been much worse. "We accept these terms," John said, bowing to the council. After the session ended, Susan, Gregory, and John walked together toward the docking area. Their ships waited to take them back to different parts of space. "You'll be assigned to Sector 12, John told Gregory. "The Concord will work in Sector 3. You won't cross paths again." Gregory nodded. Before boarding his shuttle, he stopped and turned to Susan. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry," he said. "About everything." Susan looked at him for a long moment. "Me too," she finally said. After Gregory left, John turned to Susan. "This isn't quite how I imagined humans proving themselves to the council." "We failed the test," Susan said. "Yes and no," John replied thoughtfully. "Peace was achieved, just not the way anyone expected. The council is starting to understand that humans are unpredictable. That makes them nervous, but it also makes us valuable." Susan wasn't convinced. "You think they'll ever fully trust us?" John smiled slightly. "Trust isn't always about being predictable. Sometimes it's about getting results, even in unexpected ways." 6 months after the incident at Vortex 4, Susan stood on the observation deck of the USS Concord. Stars stretched out before her as the ship traveled through space. Her crew had completed 3 successful diplomatic missions since then. Each time, a council observer had watched their every move. "Captain, incoming transmission from Earth," Alan called from his station. "It's Ambassador Miller." John's face appeared on the screen. He looked pleased. "Good news, Susan," he said. "The council has reviewed your recent missions. They're impressed with your team's work." "That's good to hear," Susan replied. "Having observers watching us all the time isn't easy." "I know. But the 'don't let humans fight each other' rule is working. 10 human ships are now on diplomatic assignments. No incidents reported." Susan nodded. She had heard nothing about Gregory or the Resolute since they parted at Proxima Station. She assumed he was following the rules too. "There's something else," John continued. "The Valerians and Techie are presenting their peace agreement as a model for other worlds. They're calling it the human method." Susan raised her eyebrows. "The human method? You mean arguing until everyone gets embarrassed into making peace?" John laughed. "Something like that. Several species have requested human diplomats specifically. They think our unpredictability helps break deadlocks." This surprised Susan. "So our failure is now seen as a technique?" "The council doesn't see it that way," John said more seriously. "The official position is that the Vortex R4 mission was a disaster that should never be repeated. That's why the protocol exists." "But unofficially?" John smiled. "Unofficially, some council members are beginning to appreciate human differences. We don't think like them. Sometimes that's valuable." After the call ended, Susan walked to her quarters. On her desk sat a small crystal from Vortex 4, a gift from both the Valerians and Techie. "To remind you that even mistakes can lead to peace," the note had said. She picked it up, thinking about everything that had happened. Perhaps humans still had much to learn about diplomacy, but perhaps they also had something to teach. 2 weeks later, the Concord received urgent orders. They were to travel to the Cygnus system immediately. A situation had developed between 3 species that threatened to turn into war. "The council is sending us?" Diane asked during the briefing. "Even after what happened last time?" "Especially because of what happened," Susan explained. "Apparently, these species have been arguing for centuries. Traditional approaches have failed." Sam looked at the mission details. "According to this, we're supposed to meet with Captain Williams and the Resolute there too." Everyone looked surprised. Susan most of all. "But the protocol says only 1 human ship per mission," Alan pointed out. "It seems the council has made an exception," Susan said. reading the orders carefully. They want us to work together, but under strict conditions. No arguments in front of the aliens, no contradicting each other. Can you and Captain Williams manage that? Diane asked bluntly. Susan wasn't sure, but she was willing to try. When they arrived at Cygnus, the Resolute was already there. Gregory's face appeared on screen, his expression professional. Captain Richards, he said formally. Ready to attempt the human method? Controlled disagreement under council supervision? Susan smiled slightly. Ready if you are, Captain Williams. They prepared for the mission. Niebler arrived as their council observer. The Proximan's eyes shifted between cautious yellow and curious green. The council is watching this experiment closely, Niebler told them. If you succeed, it may change how we view human diplomacy forever. Susan looked out at the alien world below. She knew that nothing in the galaxy was simple. Peace came in many forms, sometimes through careful words, sometimes through unexpected actions, and sometimes through understanding that different approaches, even conflicting ones, might both have value. Let's get to work, she said to her crew. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can really do.